Hey Ross, the Wars, it's across the pond here for our 10th episode, I think it is. Le Deciem for any of the Real Madrid fans. Obviously, they've gone well past that now, and we haven't spoken since the Champions League. But yeah, we've obviously got Mike from the Legion and Ross from his Unicorns. We just sort of, going to catch up and see how everyone's been. Obviously, across the pond here, it's been the celebration of the Queen and 70 years on the throne. Mike, did you get up to much for the Jubilee celebrations?
Big street party in my new road. So I was getting nice, meet some new neighbours. Drank too much as always, which is kind of my thing, I suppose. Yeah, no, just a great bit of time with family and stuff, which was quite nice. So it was nice to sort of watch the pomp and tangent of the British military do their stuff as well, which was nice.
Was it quite a big turnout then in sort of the community for the Queen?
Yeah. So out on Alot Road, there's 80 houses. So there's a good couple of hundred people out the road, kids flying past on bikes, and we basically got the road closed for the weekend, for the day. So
nice. And then I dare to ask, but what did the diehard Scots do to celebrate the lovely Queen?
Absolutely nothing. There was no street parties whatsoever. It was good to get a couple of days off work to enjoy the sun. Excuse for a party, but there was definitely no Jubilee parties anyway. I can tell you that.
No. It seemed like obviously quite good celebrations out here, and for those Americans there on Ross the Wars, it's worth looking into the monarchy. It's a good way for the future, although Ross will disagree.
Definitely not.
We've already given them Prince Harry, so I'm sure they'll have Meghan Markle and Prince Harry running for offices soon. But yeah, look, it's obviously been a while since we touched base and sort of caught up with everything, and everyone. Obviously, RFA's been pretty busy and coming towards the end here now for the minors, and the main league was obviously cruised through their draft and their RFA. But this episode we're just going to touch on a bit of the news. There's a lot that we haven't spoken about or covered, and just sort of catch up. But let's start with obviously breaking news or relatively recent news. Aaron Donald's new sort of contract restructure. From what I understand, it wasn't an extension. It's the same sort of duration of the contract that he originally had. It's just how it was restructured. Ross, are you surprised at all?
No, not at all. I thought the discussion around Aaron Donald and his retirement, I thought was really surprising. Obviously, it started like the day before the Super Bowl. I think it was the first time we heard around it. But money seems to solve a lot of problems, and the amount of money he's getting paid, he deserves it for one, but it also means that he'll come back and play for another couple of years at least. But yeah, he's the highest paid non-quarterback, which when you look at his career so far, is about time. Obviously, he's the biggest impact. If there was to be an MVP, it wasn't a quarterback, you'd probably say it was Aaron Donald.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mike, do you have any sort of comments on the Donald sort of contract or any surprise there?
No, but the guaranteed money is obviously very impressive again. $65 million over 2 years guaranteed. So I'm sure he's a very happy man. I'm sure they're all going to try and retire at least, or sell in or retire, get a nice pay rise. He's a legend at his position, legend in the sport. So very deserved, I guess. And I guess the Rams try to run it back for another Super Bowl this year. So maybe this year's the year he retires. Takes the $65 million and wanders off into the sunset.
Yeah. Look, the Rams, as you say, have had a pretty stable off-season. I think sort of obviously getting Bobby Wagner and a few other pieces as well, and extending these guys that they need to. They're setting up to sort of, as you say, run it back and be in a pretty strong position to do that. And some of the recent retirements, Ross, obviously Frank Gore and Fitzmagic retired. I think Fitz had a stint with you and your lovely Jets. I don't think there are many teams that he hasn't had a stint with. But what are your memories of the legend that is Fitzmagic?
Yeah, well, looking back, it's always easy to paint it all with roses, and it was a great time. I think 2015 was the one season where we were very close to the playoffs. Like it was a week 17 scenario against the Tyrod Taylor-led Bills, and it was a winning in. And then so Fitzpatrick played really well all season. I think he's thrown to Brandon Marshall, Eric Decker. It was a really great season for the Jets, well, by Jet standards anyway. And then on the final day of the season, he throws 3 interceptions and just totally tanks it. So it was the whole Ryan Fitzpatrick experience encapsulated into one season, and that's how I remember it. It wasn't great at the time, but looking back, it's one of our most successful seasons in a long time.
Yeah, no,
He was certainly a live personality as well. I mean, some of the stuff, that press conference we rocked up with the jewellery on and the Fitzmagic personality is he'll be missed. And he started at least one game at every team he played for, and he was never taken as a starting quarterback most of the time. He was taken as a backup, so that's quite impressive.
Yeah, his career is pretty incredible.
Did you know he went to Harvard?
Man,
that's never been mentioned before.
Does what did he even study there? Does anyone know whether it was absolutely intelligent or was it something that he snuck in for?
I don't think you can sneak into Harvard. I'm not sure that's one of those colleges you can sneak into, but he had no idea what he studied.
No, yeah, look, I think he's, as you say, he's a larger than life personality. Like, you even look at him celebrating some of those Bull fans during that playoff run most recently, and I don't think there are many teams that he spent time on that will look back on him with any sort of negative sort of feel towards. Maybe he didn't perform at super lights out level, and it's a shame that he never reached a Super Bowl as a type of player, because it would have been entertaining. But I've got a few sort of negative experiences with him against him in fantasy finals when he's gone on and torched my team in sort of a week 16 or week 17. But no, an absolute legend of the game. And similar with Frank Gore. He's another part-time Jet as well here. Ross, we're going to go through all the old boys here.
Yeah, not as fond memories as Frank Gore. I don't think he'd really done anything at all with the Jets, but my abiding memories of Frank Gore is just being a fantasy stud for so long. Like, he was so consistent for so many years, and it felt like, I don't even know if this is true, but anecdotally, like, he was always a later round pick, maybe like 4th, 5th round, and you could just guarantee like RB1 production like every single year. And that's all I think about Frank Gore, is just consistent, getting yards every single season for like, what was it, 10, 15 years he played in the league. So he's just unbelievable, and you don't really see that these days, do you?
65th pick he was, the sixth running back off the board. So that's not bad, is it? And the 3rd of 5 Miami Hurricanes the same year.
Yeah, I know, it's a pretty incredible career. Like, what he ended. Look, I'm obviously just on Wikipedia here, so let's see how accurate these stats are. But he's the third highest rusher of all time. Sort of well over it says 16,000 yards on the number, with an average of 4.3 yards per carry. He's slightly ahead of Barry Sanders. He's slightly ahead of Adrian Peterson. He's only just behind Walter Payton. This guy is clearly one of he's up there with some of the greatest running backs of all time. Obviously, in terms of explosiveness and sort of his high production, you could maybe question, but longevity is a definite case in his favor. He finished. He retired in the end with the 49ers, right? He signed sort of that one-day contract.
Yeah, one-day retirement contract. So that's where it all started for him, really. But he played. I think he did like 8 or 9 years at the 49ers before he went off and started sort of travelling around other teams, I think.
No, he did.
I think the only thing he didn't really win was a Super Bowl, right? I think he was one of those amazing players who just never quite got the right team at the right time to take him there. So he left the year before they went to the Super Bowl, didn't he, I think, 49ers. The year that they went and lost into the Ravens.
Oh yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, it's been a pretty special career. Do we see anyone else sort of emulating a Frank Gore type of career? Do we think look, obviously maybe I'm a little bit biased here being a Saints fan, but if Kamara is to miss time and Mark Ingram gets maybe another run in the team, do we think someone like a Mark Ingram can sustain another couple of years? Because that sort of longevity is unheard of. There are not many around that can still do it at that level.
But AP's still trying to play, isn't he? He's still trying to get a team for next season.
Yeah.
He's not officially retired yet. So
I think the NFL's changed massively since Frank Gore was around. Like, back then, you'd give your top running back that many carries, but there's not really that many guys in the NFL these days, is there? It's what is it, Derrick Henry and then Jonathan Taylor, and that's about it. That's about it.
Yeah, as you said, there might be people that, if they're lucky, catch up in terms of quantity. Like, as you said, Derrick Henry, but even Derrick Henry's we're starting to see him become slightly more injury prone, and that's where Frank Gore was sort of second to none in terms of injuries. He hardly missed many, if any, games. But anyway, let's sort of shift a bit. the news obviously on Denver, this, what, 4.7 billion dollar takeover, the Walton family, it's probably a good investment. Look, the Denver are there to make a run of it, but it's quite a difficult division at the moment.
Yeah, it's a bit of a well, we keep saying it, arms race at the moment over there. But I think for a family, they've got connections to the Lakers and all sorts of different sporting teams. I guess it kind of makes sense to add a football franchise to your shopping list. But it just goes to show you how expensive sports teams are nowadays. With Chelsea being bought last week, whatever it was, as well.
£4.5 million. The product is unbelievable in terms of, as you say, the entertainment value that they sort of offer, and how marketing and advertising and sort of promoting has really taken over the world. And if you're getting seats watching TV or watching the NFL, those ad breaks are what's making the money here. And obviously they need to sell the sport as an entertainment value, and that's all sports worldwide. But there's clearly a reason why NFL is so highly regarded and highly watched. There was, look, I'm sort of pulling this out of thin air because I saw it briefly, but correct me if I'm wrong, but there was something like in the 20 most viewed TV productions from last year, I think something like more than 50% were NFL games in terms of sort of viewership in America, and that's quite something. Obviously, it's a very football heavy culture there, and I'm sure in the UK it would be sort of quite like soccer, although soccer is incredibly more diluted. It would be that sort of influence. But do we think this sort of purchase and ownership change brings huge unrest or huge change in sort of how a franchise works on a day-to-day basis, Ross?
Well, I think they're talking about getting Peyton Manning in, so I'm not really sure what that does. Like, it's a bit hit or miss. Maybe when you bring in old players, does that mean because they know the franchise, or is it just a sort of PR exercise for the fans to sort of get them on side with the new regime? But I think for me, like, they got Russell Wilson because they were selling the team, so they wanted to sell the team to someone with like a franchise player, with a franchise QB. Makes it a lot easier. Maybe even got the price up another couple $100 million. You never know. So I think that shows that even just getting Russell Wilson in, it shows that they want to win and they want to do well. It's not just about coming in and making money. Like, there are some teams who are not really going to invest year after year. The Bengals come to mind as someone who are quite cheap, but you want someone who's going to come in, be aggressive and invest the money back into the franchise and try and win.
Yeah. Look, it's probably an aspect as a relatively new NFL fan. Like, I've obviously sort of looked at it from the outside and from over here in the UK for a number of years now. The intricacies in terms of how much power the owners have, in terms of how much is actually their individual personal money being invested into these franchises. This is sort of area of NFL I'm not too familiar with myself personally. And obviously the salary cap is in place, but how much out of pocket are these owners actually themselves? Are they, as a company, paying the wages, or is it done through, like, where's this money coming and going from? Who's paying the players, for example?
Well, it comes out the funds for the season, isn't it? But
yeah,
the fact that the clubs own the league and they didn't divvy up any profits, so they're paying themselves. So all the TV rights goes into the NFL. It gets split up into teams. There's obviously the agreement about tickets as well, seats. So each game, the home team sends a certain portion of their incoming ticket funds into a central fund, unless you're from Washington, and you don't do that, which is a whole other subject. But yeah, so they're all working together to pay their franchises, which is why they've gone to 17 games, which is why they have these TV rights with Amazon. They're printing their own money. So as much as the family's worth X billion, it comes out of the funds running the club as well. I mean, obviously, if they want to go and build a brand new training facility, I guess that comes out of their pocket. But yeah, it's a money-making exercise for all these guys, as far as I can see. So
yeah, it's a different world from soccer as we know it. The guys buying Chelsea for $4 billion, they're going to be in debt. That's not a business. That's just like a community thing, and they want to win. But with NFL, it's a business, and you will make profit and you will make money year after year because of the closed shop that Mike talked about and the salary cap and things like that.
Yeah. No,
it's a good old boys club, basically, apart from the Husky family, but they all look after each other, right? So, which is when you look at what Dan Snyder's apparently done at Washington.
Yeah.
Chewing his own arm off by trying to take money away from the other owners. So, you know, to throw one, well, it looks like he's going up to Congress and all sorts of stuff over there. So that'll be an interesting one, because normally they close ranks and defend each other. But I think there's been interesting if Jerry Jones throws him under the bus and the other will jump on right behind him. So interesting what happens.
Yeah.
Sexual misconduct, don't worry about that. It's fine. You can do whatever you want. Stadium's in disrepair. But don't you start taking our money, because then we'll clamp down on it.
Yeah,
don't you dare take our money.
That's what it is, though, right? It's exactly what's going on. Legally, we deny any thing that might put us in contradiction to any legal papers going on. So we didn't say anything else.
As you say, it's all relatively political. It's sort of everyone's sort of having a little bit of dirt on each other, and sort of being almost everyone's hands are tied to a certain extent. But when it comes to reputation, they'll fight each other's corners. But as you say, when it comes to sort of screwing each other over on a business matter, then it becomes personal. But yeah, look, it's all interesting. And look, obviously, we don't want to get too wrapped up into the whole sort of Deshaun Watson saga, because that's just absolutely messy. And even today, you saw sort of Corbyn and Colin and a few others sort of having their opinions. And the best thing about Roster Wars as a forum in particular is that we've got 45 people involved on a daily basis in this league and commenting and sharing their honest and open views. And we're not all going to have the same views on all these things. So it's great that it can be shared, and obviously needs to be received in certain ways. And look, we all know each other long enough now to know that no one's coming from sort of a disrespectful place. It's just sort of just trying to voice their opinions, and it's just sort of staying open-minded and trying to follow that sort of thread today. I can totally understand sort of, or when I say understand, I can see where Corbyn is coming from in terms of the concept of innocent until proven guilty. But at the same time, when it is something that's so morally questionable, you do have to almost go into it with quite a firm hand. Look, as I said, we probably don't want to get into it too much, but on the fantasy side of things now, does this, what do you think, Mike, is going through the Browns backroom staff here? If things do look like they're going a bit south here, do they kiss and make up with Baker? Are they running with
Baker Mayfield? Speed up. Hello, mate. How are you? We're very sorry. Could you come back for the season? And we'll trade you off 9. Yeah, of course.
Or do you think they go with Jacoby Brissett because they've burnt that bridge already? Or
I think if they can get any value for Baker Mayfield, they will. But if it comes down to the start of the season, no one's taking him, they might as well just let him go. Unfortunately, they've guaranteed pretty much, well, they have guaranteed all of Watson's salary, so financially they can't. They'd like to lose Baker because it saves them money, but yeah. I don't know if they want to keep this win now attitude. They've brought players in like Amari Cooper. They're invested heavily to go and win. If Watson is suspended for any length of time, the whole season, 6 games, whatever, they've got to be in contention after that period of time. Yeah, so they've got to be thinking about that. Is Jacoby Brissett going to give you better chances than Baker Mayfield? It depends what system they're in. If they're running a very run-heavy offense with the quarterbacks, then maybe Brissett's a better guy to hold the reins.
Or maybe if they think the long game here and Tank can get better picks next year to help out Watson when he comes back. It's all sort of pretty questionable now in terms of what teams are motivating them, or maybe they go and try snipe old the Melosis's future quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who tried out with the Vegas. He's looking for a team still. What Ross, did you see any value in Kaepernick's workout with the Raiders?
Yeah, why not? I think, I don't know who their backup quarterback is now. I know it was Mariota, but I don't know who they've got in to replace him. But I don't see why not. Obviously, it's better I'm going there rather than somewhere like Seattle, let's say, where there might be talk of him being the starting quarterback and things like that. And I know it has been a few years since he played, and I don't know how many players have left the NFL for that period of time, came back and were at the same level that they were before. And you can question whether he was a starting quarterback when he left the NFL or not. But I think kicking the tires on him as a backup quarterback, there's no reason not to, especially when you see these backup quarterbacks come in, and if they've got one thing that they're really good at, then they can sort of get by, and obviously Kaepernick can win the ball. And you've seen where I think Tyler Huntley and Tyrod Taylor, to a certain extent, they can do like one or two things well, and they seem to have a little bit.
Heineke last year with the Commanders, right? Or sorry, the Washington football team they were in. He came in. Fitzmagic was being a starter, and he's done a decent job all season. To the point, Nathan even picked him up in the draft. I think it was like 7th round. Dodgy pick in last year's draft for PP.
Yeah, I got pretty lucky. I just sort of rolled the dice on Heineke, I think 7th round in the draft, and then I ended up trading him to, I think it was Brian at the Tallahassee Storm for a 5th round. So I thought I did well. And then he went and traded him for like a 3rd round at the time. Like he sort of went up in price during the season. But that's another interesting one. Obviously, Carson Wentz in town in Washington, and obviously will be their starter, but which quarterback did they take? Sam Howell, or did Sam Howell go to Eagles? Yeah, Sam Howell. So they've got Sam Howell. They still got Heineke, I think. Or is he a free agent now, Ross? I'm not too sure, but there must be a handful of sort of quarterbacks that are I like. I think it's on Around the NFL on that podcast. They sort of used Andy Dalton as the benchmark. So any quarterback better than Andy Dalton is a starter and should be a comfortable starter. And anyone less than Andy Dalton is an absolute backup. And that's sort of where it is. And someone like Heineke, in my opinion, is slightly better than a Dalton, and maybe he should be sort of the new benchmark as sort of a backup. Why not send him to the Browns or trade him away and get something in return if that's even an option? I'm not too sure. We'll see. But there are obviously a few quarterbacks with legs that are causing a bit of a stir. Obviously, Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson are sort of gradually are they signing new contracts? What do you think they'll do? I don't know, Ross. They're obviously two independent situations, really. One is sort of fighting a bit more publicly against his franchise and Kyler Murray, and Lamar is sort of pretty happily sort of just trying to stay in the dark, sort of coming in and doing what he needs to do. But do you see any issues going forward? Do you think they're going to run their contracts out and look for a big payday, or what do you think?
Well, I think Lamar Jackson could run his contract out and get a big payday, but like you said, it'll still be successful in the field and it'll still be okay for the Ravens. They might need to pay a bit more, and they might not have the long-term security that they would want. But I'm not sure he would test free agency and go somewhere else. Could be wrong. But the Kyler Murray situation is completely different. And like I could see the Cardinal situation just completely blown up next year, sacking Cliff Kingsbury, the GM, and getting rid of Kyler and just starting fresh. That is a possibility that could happen. And all the talk you've heard about Kyler and his attitude and how he's not a leader and all this little niggles, this doesn't help. This definitely doesn't help. And OTAs, fair enough. But when it comes to mandatory camps and you're not there and you're supposed to be a leader of the team, that's when sort of questions start getting asked. I don't know about you, Mike. Would you reckon if you had a quarterback of your team wasn't showing up to OTAs, would you be concerned?
I would, yeah. If you're any other players, management, coaching stuff, you want your leaders in the house, right? Especially you got the new draft picks coming in. You're bedding new players into the system. You've lost your starting wide receiver for 6 games. You've got to gel with other people in camp if they've brought in a few new players. It's not someone you want the quarterback disappearing on. You want him there to do it. He's always come down to the I stamp my feet, I unfollow you on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm not your friend anymore, so pay me. But there is rumours he's going to get some massive 6-year contract, which I think is a bit of a gamble for the Cardinals when they're doing it. Whether that's just Steve Keim just keeping him nice and happy through to see what happens. But going back to Lamar, if he does run it down, they're still going to tag him. He's not going to walk. They'll tag him and tag him and then trade him away or whatever. So they're not going to let him walk for free.
Because as you said, then it becomes quite a dangerous territory for Lamar Jackson, because if you're in a situation now where you're playing on that franchise tag as a quarterback, and you do, heaven forbid, get a bad injury, and if you're a mobile quarterback of that, like someone like Lamar, if you go and do an ACL or snap an Achilles or who knows what, and now you're on a 1-year rolling franchise contract or a franchise tag, you could be massively exposed where you're sitting there injured with a situation where you're going to have to do rehab for 18 months and you're a bit screwed. It was similar-ish to sort of Dak when Dak sort of went down, but Dak obviously had a very established relationship with the Cowboys that they did sort of still end up offering him a contract. And I think Dak clearly recovered well enough that they still had faith that he could sort of perform at the highest level, which is obviously that all depends on how severe the injuries are and that sort of thing. I don't know.
And don't forget, Dak was super cheap for the first 4 years.
Yeah.
Fourth round pick in the draft, no 5th-year option. They had to tie him up quicker. I also think him and Zeke might have photographs of Jerry Jones doing something. They both got paid exceptionally well, and Zeke's done pretty much nothing since then. So, it's a dangerous game to play, but obviously, unlike soccer, the power lies with the ownership. Pretty much in most of these cases, they trade you, they flip you. You have no say where you go. You got to do your contracts, but if you want to play football and get paid, you pretty much do what you're told. And is it why is it set out? Some of these guys that were set out over the years, Le'Veon Bell, they'll set out. Are they the same players when they come back? Take a year out. Back to Kaepernick, could be out for 6 years. Is Kaepernick anywhere near the same guy he will be? Probably not. No. So it's a very dangerous game to play. I think Lamar ends up signing a long contract. He'll get paid a vast amount of money, but I think he's probably tied to Harbour to a certain point as to what they want to do with him. There's rumours he might decide to hang up his coaching hat for a while. But Murray, I think, is a dangerous one. If he's not in the building, it's a very dangerous game to play.
It's as you say, I think it is a dangerous game to play. Look, he's obviously pretty lucky because he's still young and he's still an incredible athlete and he's got a gun arm and who knows, he could even you'd obviously have to do a huge sort of deconstruction of his body in terms of if he ever wanted to go into baseball, which is sort of where he was drafted originally, and that's obviously quite far-fetched in terms of, I'm sure, the muscle mass that he has put on, even though he's still quite a short guy. He's obviously rapid with an arm, but he has a little bit more sort of power in that sort of him as a brand. But look, let's go sort of back to San Francisco, sort of Jimmy G and this whole Trey Lance thing. And I don't know, it was because Kyle Shanahan, am I right in saying he was quoted as saying that they're trading him, that I think Jimmy G sort of out the front door already, basically. And he sort of paved over that quite quickly, saying, "Oh no, I'll wait. It'll have to be the right deal," or he's still sort of rehabbing or something. Are we getting nervy at all of whether Trey Lance is ready, or what do you think here, Ross? Do you think Trey Lance is 100% go week one and the whole season there's faith in him, or do you think he has to perform in the first 3 weeks or else Jimmy G's back in?
I think it's a bit of both. I don't think Trey Lance is quite ready yet, and he's technically a rookie. I suppose he's been sitting there doing nothing for a year, but when he comes in and gets games, that's when he'll start learning properly. But at the same time, I don't see him getting benched after 3 games for Jimmy G. I think the organisation wants to move on from Jimmy G, and there may be people in the organisation that don't, but I think overall they do, and they're just waiting on Jimmy G rehabbing, maybe his value going up a bit. Maybe a team in the middle of the season loses a quarterback and they need someone stat, then they'll trade a first round pick for him. But I think Trey Lance will be starting, for me anyway, but it's just whether he'll perform to the same level that to get San Francisco back to the playoffs, back to close to winning the Super Bowl again. I'm hesitant, but I think he gives them the higher ceiling for sure.
Yeah, massively. And like obviously sort of putting things together, there's suddenly a little bit more light at the end of the tunnel in the whole sort of Debo situation. Debo's obviously back in a training apparently now, and sort of reintegrating himself. And I think all of us always felt that was going to be the case. It's purely a money thing here. Debo, although there were sort of rumors that he wasn't necessarily happy on the West Coast, I think that was sort of more smoke than actual fire. And I think Debo also wants to avoid running the ball that much as well, where he just wants to be sort of a pure receiver. Mike, do you see Debo and Lance sort of gelling relatively quickly, or what's your sort of feel on the whole 49ers situation at the moment?
Well, they've had a year of reps, so to speak, in not all last season, right? So Lance was going to get some first team reps because of the way they were set up last year. Lance was coming in and playing 2 or 3 series of games, series of plays. So there must be a balance in there. They must know each other. One person that Jimmy G hope leaves is Samuel, because then that frees up $50 million. Likewise, Nick Bosa, because as soon as Jimmy G's out the door, they're going to go, right, start paying us. So I think, although, was it Kittle said the other day, it's a toss-up who's the best quarterback or something, I think, or who should be the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
So, interesting. But I think what Ross said was right. They'll hold on to it until the value's right. They might as well keep it to the start of the season. They can pay these 2 guys mid-season. They can give them the bumper contracts. And everyone's happy. I get the impression that Shanahan's told Debo, "You're not a running back. You're a wide receiver." So I think he's mellowed out. He's friends again. He's 10 up to 88. Obviously, it's mandatory. So if you start missing those, you start to hit your pocket.
Yeah, he's still doing fine.
So I think I think the 49ers want to have another run at it again, right? So they want to kind of keep as much talent in the building. So the way Samuel played last year was a hybrid running back, wide receiver. They've got some good running backs in the house with Mitchell. Trey Sermon was supposed to be pretty decent when he came in off the draft. Obviously, he's not done anything so far. I can see you shaking your head. But they've got other players there that can do the right. If they're going to have multiple running backs, there's other guys there. Frank Gore's just signed from again. Frank
bring him on at a time. Then. But look, I think that whole NFC. If we rewind 12 months here, that whole NFC West, everyone was worried. Everyone thought that was what the AFC West is now. Everyone was saying, look, that Seahawks team is loaded when it was Russell and DK and Lockett, and then your Cardinals was obviously loaded because you had Kyler Murray, and everyone was excited about. I think they just brought JJ Watt over. Then you had obviously the 49ers who had just come off losing a Super Bowl final, and everyone thought they were ready to go even with Jimmy G. And then you had the Rams who were ready to go. Now you've that whole NFC West, I feel, is transitioning, except for the Rams. The Rams are sort of obviously running it back, but you've got Seattle going through a pretty messy rebuild, although they've added a lot of, in my opinion, they've actually had behind the scenes, they seem to have had a pretty positive off season other than a quarterback. I think that the pieces that they have added do look promising, but then at the same time, a quarterback's such a big part in that division. Then obviously the Cardinals are going through their own teething pains, and the 49ers are going to have a rookie quarterback. So that conference is suddenly going to go from an absolute worry for most teams to possibly maybe a weak / transitioning conference now, or sorry, division. So it'll be interesting, because there is an opportunity there for the 49ers to do well, but the Cardinals probably think the same thing. The Seahawks might think the same thing as well. Who knows?
Well, the NFC is generally weaker than the AFC, as I can see it this year coming.
Yeah,
the AFC seems stacked at pretty much every part you look at. The NFC, there's some great teams there, but there's not as many great sides. So maybe it's a chance for some of the other teams to have a run and get out there. But the Rams do look strong, of course. But I think the NFC looks an easier side of the draw. So
massively. I don't know, Ross. Obviously, you the AFC fan here, or at least the AFC expert on the pod, and it looks pretty tough your side. That AFC East looks a bit daunting this year. I think we would all love to see the Patriots finish last in the division. So let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think they will. And that's another off-season storyline. Matt Patricia potentially calling plays on offense. It's a fall from grace from McDaniels and Brady and what they've had for the last however many years. And I think I just can't see how it's going to be good. Like Matt Patricia, who's terrible calling defensive plays, now you're going to make him call offensive plays with Joe Judge chipping in, and I just don't see how that's going to turn out in a positive way. Like they had, I don't know, was it 10 wins they managed last year? Maybe not. Maybe it was less than that. But I think they could be like 5 wins or even less this year. Maybe it's the Jet fan in me that's saying that though.
There's a lot to be said that Belichick's not actually saying who's calling anything or who's in charge of anything. It's we don't need to define who's coaching this and who's coaching that. So it sounds like either they don't know or he doesn't want to give anyone responsibility. The room is Baby Belichick's coming through to take over the top job anyway. So
yeah, I think the latter.
Everybody straight into the top seat.
Yeah, I 100% think the latter. I think Belichick is just control freaking the hell out of this, and will obviously leave on his terms eventually one day. And yeah, he's hopeful that this Mac Jones can turn it around for the Patriots. And look, by all means, I think Mac Jones had an incredible rookie year. He ticked a lot of boxes, and he ticks a lot of boxes for the Patriots. But whether he will keep progressing and improving as a player, that will be interesting. Because
I'm sure he will.
Because there's a lot of room for. I think there's a lot more ceiling for a lot of those other going into now sophomore quarterbacks into 2022 season. But look, guys, I think we'll just sign off there. It's been good to catch up. Sorry, it's been a while, and I'm sure we'll get another pod back to the Roster Wars forum as soon as possible. Hopefully, summarizing some of the RFA stuff. We can all bitch and complain about those 23-hour counters or matches, and then look forward to sort of the Miners draft also coming up. But yeah, any sort of closing remarks your guys' side, or were you happy to sort of sign off and we'll go from there?
All good with me. The only we didn't discuss was a certain tight end getting 56.75 million, but that was a strange lead by the Browns anyway. We'll move past that one.
Yeah, and Joker doesn't need our time. He's I don't know what's going on there in the Browns. That's probably where they sort of hiding Deshaun Watson's money, or that's what they're paying the lawyers through somewhere through that contract or something. But no, it's been good. Ross, yeah, thanks for your time again during the week, and Mike, and enjoy the rest of the week, and I'm sure we'll touch base again soon. Thanks, Roscoe. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks. See ya.
Yeah.